To the Lions. This Jeremy Fowler tweeting right now. So the Lions get better offensively, an offense, Adam, that's already been clicking well.
Well, listen, they could have used another wide receiver. We've seen them be without wide receivers this year. Jameson Williams was on suspension. They've dealt with all sorts of issues at that position. So this is just one more playmaker. And Donovan Peoples-Jones went to Michigan, goes back to the state of Michigan. Plays for the Detroit Lions, right?
Michigan
I'm shocked that it took you so long to recognize that. But he was a sixth-round pick that actually is also a good punt returner, and it does give them some depth. And if I'm Detroit, though, I like this move for them. But wait a second. You just saw two good pass rushers leave Washington. You could use somebody on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. So I like Peoples-Jones. I would have liked Montez Sweat or Chase Young even better for Detroit.
Yeah, it's interesting because Lewis brought that up earlier. He would have liked to see the Lions add more to that D-line. Either way, Lou, you see the Lions adding some offensive weaponry, but how about the Browns deciding to trade away Donovan Peoples-Jones?
Yeah, it's interesting, especially considering the fact that there were maybe some people who thought, maybe they could use another weapon on the perimeter in Cleveland themselves as far as trying to get as much, that they could get on the offensive side of the football and really improve their explosive component. But, with Cleveland, look, obviously they have different intentions. Donovan Peoples-Jones is someone who really has been underutilized, and maybe he'll be utilized much better in Ben Johnson's offense up there with Jared Goff, who quite honestly last night, along with some of the young weapons that they have on this football team already, has got to be happy with the fact that now they get another piece to try and integrate into an offense that really is dynamic and really is going to help, I think, overall round out this football team as they make this push to the playoffs. But yeah, look, I agree with Mike. The defensive line, a guy opposite Aiden Hutchinson, was something that I thought was a surefire lock that they would explore hard, and maybe they did. Maybe they did and just weren't able to agree on compensation. But look, I like the Peoples-Jones move for Detroit. For Cleveland, we'll see what it means going forward.
Yeah, that's the interesting part to me, Lou, is that if the season ended today, the Cleveland Browns are the 7th seed, and they've done it without any quarterback play. Hopefully, Deshaun Watson will be back sooner than later. So it's a little surprising they would give up on Peoples-Jones, knowing that they're going to have meaningful games coming down the stretch.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, too, to monitor the Browns here over the next hour or so and see if they do try to get some help at the quarterback position with everything going on with Deshaun Watson. Speaking of quarterback help, what?
I don't think so.
You don't?
No.
Not Jacoby Brissett?
No.
Okay, interesting.
They will not be
there
trading for Jacoby Brissett.
Well, they traded everybody else today.
I know. I'm about to say. All right.
Well, Washington might trade Jacoby Brissett, just not the Cleveland.
Right. Good point. How about this? Joshua Dobbs traded by Arizona to the Vikings. Of course, the Vikings without Kirk Cousins, so this makes a bit of sense. And Dobbs has been much better this season when facing man coverage with 7 touchdowns to just 1 interception with a 69 QBR. Comparatively, Dobbs has the 2nd worst QBR against zone coverage this season, ahead of only Zach Wilson. And his 46-point QBR drop-off from man to zone coverage is the largest for any qualified quarterback in the NFL. So you know what you're getting with Josh Dobbs, but Adam, he's had some really nice moments over in Arizona, especially when Kyler Murray hasn't been able to play. What do you think the thought is here for Minnesota?
Well, I think the thought is this. Josh Dobbs is smart enough, as he's already shown this season, to pick up an offense very quickly. When he was traded this summer to the Arizona Cardinals, he stepped in right away and started within a week or two of being traded to that offense. He's already done it once. He's got a astronaut type of brain, and so he's quick enough to go into Minnesota, quickly absorb that offense. Now, Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, said today that Jaron Hall, the rookie, is going to start on Sunday at Atlanta. But they're going to begin to ramp up Josh Dobbs. And if Jaron Hall plays well, I would imagine they could continue to stick with him. If not, they could go to Dobbs. And they have Nick Mullins coming off injured reserve next week, in addition to having Sean Mannion on the practice squad. So I think it's just giving them some options and hoping that one of them works out.
Yeah, Mike, it's interesting considering there were conversations ahead of the last couple games about Minnesota maybe just having to offload more players. And now they're trying to add players to stay alive in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, and they're right in the thick of things. The first thing I would do if I'm the Minnesota Vikings is I sign Kirk Cousins to an extension right now.
Okay.
I say, hey, look, you're going to be dealing with this rehab. You'll be ready to go by next season. Let's sign him to a reasonable 2-year deal, and we're also going to draft your replacement. This way, you could solidify that position. Interestingly, both Josh Dobbs and Kirk Cousins have the same agent, so it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. And in terms of Jaron Hall, Lewis and I were down at the Senior Bowl, and Jaron Hall has some talent. He's tiny, though. Like, by NFL standards, he's really small. He has a good arm. So I would think at some point Josh Dobbs would take over. But if I'm Minnesota, I would solidify this position by signing Kirk Cousins, knowing we're going to go through a rehab, and then looking at next year's draft as well.
Louis, you think this move is enough for Minnesota to make a playoff run, though?
I don't know if this is the move, Laura, that puts them over the top, but it gives them a much better chance than what they would have otherwise. And I think, look, I think this is all about profiles. And meaning, look, as Adam alluded to, Joshua Dobbs is one of the smartest human beings on earth. Okay, let's just forget football. This guy is absolutely brilliant. And when you're talking about bringing someone in at this point in time at that position, you better have someone who has a huge, huge processor in their brain. And Josh has that, on top of the fact that he's a very talented athlete. He is a guy who, as you alluded to, can get very hot. He can be very streaky. But I think it's always about consistency when you're talking about quarterbacks that haven't been able to establish themselves as starters. He's got some nice pieces to work with up there. He has a football team right now that is feeling as though, look, we don't need you to be a savior. We just need you to be a piece. We just need you to be a distributor, because right now they have developed a heck of a chemistry. You know, it's obviously very, very, unfortunate about what happened to Kirk, and Kirk's a big part of that. But he's going into a good quarterback room. He's with a great head coach in Kevin O'Connell, who will know exactly how to bring him along and in the right time as far as bringing him along. And he has some really nice young receivers to throw to, namely Jordan Addison and a tight end like T.J. Hawkinson. So it's a good move for them. It gives them at least a fighting chance. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the Vikings also traded away Ezra Cleveland to the Jaguars to give some help on that offensive line for Trevor Lawrence. More on that.
Interested in making a move like this?
Well, the Bears were interested because they've been wanting a pass rusher dating back to the last offseason. And then if you have a crystal ball and you start forecasting what the free agent edge market is going to be next spring, it's not going to be great. Look, Rashawn Gary just signed a contract extension with the Green Bay Packers. Chase Young obviously just dealt, or he was going to re-sign in Washington, and you would have had some concerns about his medicals. You continue going down, and maybe Josh Allen becomes available with the Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe not. Brian Burns could get franchise tagged. Those negotiations are difficult in Carolina and have been. And so if you are the Bears and you need a pass rusher, and you've needed one, and you were weak there, whether it is for this year or for years to come, go out there and be aggressive and get your guy. Did they overpay for Montez Sweat? I don't know. I think that he's played pretty well this year. He's in his prime. You are going to have to pay him, and you're giving up a little bit of leverage when you send off a second-round pick for him. But the alternative is either waiting until March in free agency and really overpaying for him, or waiting until March, trying to overpay for him, and then not get him, and being in the exact same situation with no pass rusher in 2024. So